Oh, hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Emily Moyer and this is Strange Mosaic. And today I will be catching up with an old friend who I don't think we've talked in like probably a year. Like she tried to come to Conspiracy Cocktail as a guest one time, but her internet was not allowing it. We're in her prescribed internet window right now. So hopefully this will be okay. She is the OG unfucker and the boss lady at Remove the Shackles and whatnot. Dani Arnold, welcome back. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, sweetie pie?
I'm doing good. It's been a long time.
It's been I tried to get on Conspiracy Cocktail Saturday nights, and it's like 1:00 in the morning my time because I'm over here in England. It's not really good time for internet in the UK, I guess.
Why is that? Are they like metering people's internet? Like, is it like rolling blackout?
I don't know. Like we have in the evening time, I guess people are home from work, everyone's on the networks, and we're just using mobile internet at the moment because we don't have a set place, so to sign a contract and everything. So yeah, we have some days where it's just gone. Like I've had to take my shows were always at between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. And then I had to give them back to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon. And now I've geared them back to 2 o'clock on a Monday because that's the strongest day for internet for me. So
that's so interesting. Weird, yeah. All right, so
it's so exciting.
England is now a third world country, except for right here in third world countries, they have good internet because George Soros wants to make sure that all of them have 5G all the time.
Listen, we lived in Morocco.
Yeah.
For 3.5 years. And in Morocco, same thing. We used mobile sticks, top up sticks, and you just take it and you plug it into your computer, right? The side of your laptop. And that was our internet. Our internet in Morocco back in 2014 was twice as fast as what I have now living in England in the Midlands. I mean, we're just outside of Birmingham. It should be it sucks.
Yeah, that's I mean, like that's something that I don't even like. Occasionally I have like a guest on the show or whatnot, or sometimes even Dani Katz has some trouble with her internet, and you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things that like you forget about. Like that was like a thing, right? Like in the early 2000s.
Internet issues are a problem. Now that's one of the things I have been talking a lot about this year.
All right, so I think what Dani and I are going to do, since we haven't really gotten to chat much over the course of the last years, we're going to kind of catch up with each other, both on like, what are sort of things that we've been really into in terms of like stories or threads of information this year. And then also there's like a few things that are just going on right now at the moment that we're going to talk about. And so let's just go right off the bat to the one that like Dani seemed hot on, which is this Vatican nativity scene that I'll be honest, I didn't completely understand because the picture that everyone is showing, like sending around, looks like two different things are being compared. So I thought one was from the nativity scene and one was from something else, but apparently I'm now understanding.
No, it's all from the same nativity scene.
All right, so pretend I'm a fucking blithering idiot and explain to me what you think I'm looking at here. You go ahead and screen share and do it how you
I'll screen share. You need to enable me.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see. Advanced options. All participants. There we go. Okay.
Okay, so let's go to here. Okay. This is a collage that I've put together. All different types of pieces. So if you look down here at the very, very bottom, this very bottom right-hand side, if you will, that is pretty much the whole nativity it's streaming. It's spread across 30, 40 foot stage. Like it's quite extravagant and huge, et cetera, et cetera. So you get an idea. So you have down here, you've got Mary, or here up here, you can even see it a little better in the upper here, and you've got Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus, who looks surprisingly like baby Yoda. I don't know what, like seriously, all it needs is the ears, and you got a baby Yoda here. And we have this I'm not, is this supposed to be an angel? Is this supposed to be God? It's very definitely feminine. It has an apple on its head or a red ball on the top of its head, which I'm not sure why God has, as a woman, a blonde woman with a red apple on her head, whatever. You have these bizarre animals. The one is an ass. This one over here, I think after multiple, I figured out that I think it's supposed to be a bull, I think.
Okay.
Or it's some
like a ram, like a ram,
like a ram. No, like a bull, like with actual like big bull horns coming up on it.
Okay.
You can see it a little better down here in the lower right. It's just behind Mary here.
Yeah, what about like a yak? It looks kind of like a yak.
Kind of like a yak. I don't know. So then you have what I assume, again, it's like one of those things you have to look at, okay, what is a nativity scene? And of course, having lived in Malta for the last 3.5 years, land of Catholicism, more Catholic than even Italy, nativity scenes at Christmas, every church, every house has got a nativity scene. So it's always, you got the Virgin Mary, you've got Joseph, you've got baby Jesus, you got a few animals kicking around, and you have the three wise men. And occasionally an angel or something like that, which I assume this is maybe supposed to be an angel. So the three wise men down here are on the far, if you look at the bottom again, are on the far left side of the picture. And I don't know. The one of them is obviously an astronaut.
Yeah.
It's obviously an astronaut.
Yeah.
Holding what looks like the moon.
Yeah.
So like the three wise men bearing gifts. So what, there's an astronaut coming and hold on, let's see. Can I zoom in? Yeah, here we go. Like it's an astronaut.
Yeah, so it's definitely a nod to like either the ancient alien or the ancient astronaut idea. Yeah.
Holding the moon in its hand.
Yeah, which is probably closer than the idea of an astronaut going to the moon, right?
Yeah. Well, are we really going to go into that? Then you've got this other guy here who looks like a Dalek. I laughed when I saw, I'm like, okay, it's some kind of like Roman gladiator Dalek.
Okay.
With a shield and maybe a spear. I'm not sure why the wise men would have that. And then the last one is Mr. Potato Head over here blowing a kazoo. I don't know. The whole thing is ridiculous. And the big thing on it is this big lightning bolt. This big lightning plasma bolt that runs all the way through the entire scene.
Okay.
It's like, okay, because I mean, that for me, that's where I've been, right? I've been looking at all the electric universe theory, and that's been my deep rabbit hole for years now. And the fact that we're having massive plasma events all over the planet, and they are ramping up over the last couple of years. So then the first thing is I see this giant lightning bolt, plasma bolt across the nativity scene, it's like, I don't remember in the Bible it ever talking about a big thunderstorm or lightning or, I mean, a star. Okay, but there's no star. There's just lightning. And apparently an alien offering the moon.
So if you had to venture a guess at what you think what is being hinted at here, like what the narrative they're trying to imply is, like go out, I'm a fucking weirdo, so go as far out as you possibly can. And
so the excuse, of course, from the Vatican spokespeople is that it's all modern art. Although it's just modern art. There's nothing to be taken from this. It's just modern art. I'm sorry. Okay, so it is a modern art and it's fucking ugly. Like it really is. I mean, it's as ugly. Like you don't get any uglier. I have seen 7-year-olds with Play-Doh make better characters, really. But the thing for me, the two things that were just boom in my head were the alien, the obvious guy in the astronaut suit holding the moon, and the plasma bolt.
Okay.
So two of the things that I've been talking about a lot this year has been disclosure. i.e. the whole alien disclosure stuff coming out,
right?
Of which there has been a shit ton of that stuff this year,
Yeah.
from actual official people, not just, Joe on the internet talking about it.
Right.
And of course, the plasma universe.
Although
stuff,
Joe on the internet keeps talking about it, right? Like,
yeah, I know Joe on the internet just keeps talking about it.
Right. Joe on the internet is desperately engaged in perception management, right? With some of the work. He had an astronaut on yesterday talking about what it was like to look at Earth from space, right?
Oh, you mean Joe Rogan?
That's Joe on the internet, yeah.
See, I was just coming up with a name, Joe Rogan. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm telling you, Joe Rogan has put out some pieces this year that are, they are there for on a purpose. In my opinion, they've been put out on purpose, using him as a platform to put those pieces out on purpose.
Totally. I mean, at this point, he is totally a tool with multiple control factions vying for compartments in his mind. But there is like a lot of intentional bullshit being put out, and a few really good nuggets that are hidden in there, right? That you sometimes, it's interesting to watch the power struggle going on between he and his guests, who each have a faction that they're representing for a line of bullshit to put out, and which one is. It's like watching a sword fight or a pissing fight or something. You know what I mean? It's very interesting. But okay, so back to your theory here.
So like, I've been talking about disclosure all year because the pieces are coming out fast and furious now. Like, and again, official bits are being dripped out to the greater audience of the global stage, right? So when I see this, like the Vatican, who's also made several statements in the last 2 years about aliens, about, we're not alone in the universe type thing, which is about as anti-Vatican as you could possibly imagine if you've studied Roman Catholicism. So when I saw the alien, it was just like, holy shit. The moon? Really, really interesting, because I have my own theories about what our moon actually is. And then this with the plasma bolt, where again, electric universe stuff has become huge, and we're seeing more and more proof happening now that's showing us that we live in an electric universe, and there's more and more pieces coming out scientifically from the actual research scientists that are tying all the pieces together. So those were the two things that just in my head were just like, is this them putting out yet another subtle piece of disclosure?
Oh, it's not subtle.
It's not just modern art. You can't call this modern art. I'm sorry. These things don't just accidentally happen.
Like? It looks like claymation. Remember the claymation from like the 70s?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Yep.
So let me ask you. Let me ask you a couple of questions. So first of all, at this point, you've been doing this for a really long time, right? At this point, what does disclosure mean to you? Like, what do you think disclosure is? And so when you say disclosure, like, we all know what like Jordan Sather thinks disclosure is. We know what, like, whatever. What do you disclosure?
You know what? No, to me, disclosure is it officially being admitted that we're not alone in the universe.
Okay.
That it being admitted that governments have known about, have been working with alien, ET, whatever you want to call it, technology and groups for at least 70 years. At least 70 years that we have conclusive information on.
So here's my question for you, right? Which is my question to people who are like wanting disclosure or thinking disclosure is coming or whatnot, right? Like, okay, if it's official at this point, I think we all agree that like almost everything we've ever been told officially is wrong. So, right. So like, to me, why would we believe official disclosure? Right. So to me, if the officials come out and tell us we're not, well, first of all, it's like on a certain level, duh. Right. But like, if the officials come out and say that, like, you know, there are aliens here, that UFOs are real, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. There's only two possible ways to perceive that to me, right? That none of that exists, and that this whole thing was a build up to nothing, or like what UFOs and aliens are completely something different than what they're going to tell us in their disclosure that they are. So like I mean, so like I don't know that that this disclosure moves us any closer to truth, because I don't think we can ever actually get any official answers for anything meaningful, right? Like, what do you?
Yeah. This is it. I make no. How do we go? We know, as you said, that everything we've been told is a lie.
Yeah.
Everything you've been taught in school, everything you like, your parents, your priests, your teachers, it's all a lie. When it comes to the whole disclosure, right? Yes, there's aspects to it that, you know, if they have the ability to cover it up, which they have had obviously for 70 years at the very least, they will. As more and more information starts coming out, there's little statements that tell us that spaceships are not what we think they are. Spaceships are, and these beings, if you look at, again, that's when you deal with more alt media type stuff, that what these alien beings are, they're not the little green men from Mars. They're not how Hollywood portrays it. And I think the portrayal by Hollywood is been very, very deliberately done to set a bar, to set in stone certain words that we use. So when people say aliens, they say ET, they say spaceship, flying saucers. We've been programmed to have a set analysis of what that is. We in our heads, we've already decided what that is. So I think you're right. I don't think they are anything like we've been given through the Hollywood kind of shtick and all that stuff. But one of the pieces to me that has come back over and over and over again, and this is something that I've been researching this on and off for like 25 years, that whoever, whatever they are, at some point in time, they're going to come back. And there's been a lot of discussion, especially with a group of friends of mine over the last 5 years, that there's been this feeling of rush within the big controllers on the planet, like you're and all of these guys, your Clintons, your Tony Blairs. There's been this sense of urgency, like they must. How do you define this? Shit's going down. They thought they had more time, and all of a sudden they've gone, oh shit. We have, and therefore there's this massive crushing push at the moment, and well, not at the moment, for the last few years, to push certain agendas, to try and push things their way. And one of the biggest things I've always kept asking is, so what is it that's coming that they know is coming, that they obviously have no control over, like that they can't, whatever it is not something they can stop. So therefore, what is it? So one of the things for me, I put the pieces on the table, right? And I put all the pieces of the story. Anything that's a question, it goes on the table to be considered, and I don't throw shit away, because as soon as you start locking yourself into a perception, then you start missing pieces of the puzzle. So I try and keep all the pieces on the table. One of the pieces on the table for that is that equation, if you will, is that aliens, and I'll use air quotes, they're coming back. And that when they come back, there's not, do you know what I mean? There's not going to be an ability for the criminal cabal, whatever bullshitters, to actually hide it. And they know this. So now there's this subtle spin doctrine going on, like especially this year, like there's been so much semi-official disclosure been put out to the public. And I've talked for years when I used to do my news show, for years, that they put a piece out and then they watch the public reaction and then they pull it back and they'll wait sometimes another year, 2 years, and they'll put the same piece out, but it'll be just tweaked a bit. Like the spin on it will be slightly different, and they watch the reactions. So we've watched these, for example, things like the Pentagon releasing the radar footage of the UFO from 2016, I think, and officially releasing it saying, yeah, this is what it looks like, and we have questions too, type shit. Just we know that they know what it is, right? Mm-hmm. Partial pieces, but they're putting it out, and then they're testing, they're watching how people react to the information. And then they decide, okay, how do we put out the next piece? And we've seen it with technology. We've seen it with scientific discoveries. We've seen it with historical discoveries, where they put out little tiny pieces and they see how the public perceives it. Will they swallow this chunk? Okay, not really. They're not quite. Okay, so if we just spin it a little like this, and that's what I feel like is going on right now across the board in a lot of different ways, like not just on the disclosure thing, across the board. But that's one of the biggest pieces for me that sits on the table, is if they're feeding out these pieces of information now, there's a reason for it. There's a reason why it's being fed out to the public right now. And then the questions, why? Why now? Why now? Why not in 2010? Why not in 2012, when, of course, it was this massive, everyone was talking about disclosure. Why not then? No, it wasn't. Why now?
All right, so I'm going to ask you a couple of more questions, and then I'm going to like flip this all around and see what you think. Okay. All right. Because I like, a lot of things you're saying, like, I don't know. Oh, I'm just going to wait. So what is your theory about the moon?
And I'm only touching on the surface, right? So like that was me putting into 5 minutes stuff that I've been discussing for years, for hundreds of hours. So go ahead, hit me. I want to hear it.
Okay, so well, first, I have two more questions for you, I think, before I flip it over.
Okay.
Right. So, what is your thing with the moon? What is your little pet theory on the moon? Because I'm assuming it's not like the same one as David Icke's.
I think the moon is an artificial control structure.
Right. It is. Okay.
I don't even know what David Icke's theory is.
Oh,
I don't know what his theory is. I think the moon is an artificial control structure.
Mm-hmm. That's basically his theory too.
It is something that was put in place. Oh, is it?
But I mean, it's more complex. I mean, he has.
Apparently, I have something in common with David.
His book is this thick about it, right? Like his involves a lot more reptilians and stuff than I'm sure yours does. But
yeah, no, that's what he loses me at that point. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. So it's an artificial control structure, and where is it?
Where is it? Oh, I have no clue. I mean, this is what literally I was the other day, because of course yesterday was the solar eclipse.
Yeah.
And I sat there, I was sitting outside having a smoke, and I just looked to check on where it was in the solar eclipse, like what part it was.
Right.
And I sat there and was like, okay, so I have a question. Like, physics is how do you say it? I'm more big on quantum physics and astrophysics. When you get down to things like if you will, that kind of physics. If there's a solar eclipse and the moon is in front of the sun, that's blocking out light in Argentina, why am I still seeing the sun in England? If the moon is where they say it is and is the size that they say it is, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But I have no answers. All I just say is like, it's there. I see it. It's totally lost its fucking mind. The moon now appears all over the sky in places it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And times when it's not supposed to be, stops moving, starts moving. I honestly think that whatever the control structure in it that was like, its gyroscope that kept it on its path, it's fucked now.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then the last one is, well, I don't know if it's the last one. But so you said you spent a lot of time studying like the electric universe. I noticed there was a story yesterday about laser guided lightning. Did you see that story? It came up in my YouTube feed, something about laser guided. I didn't actually click on it because I just didn't have time, but it did stand out to me. I paid attention to it. Right. And so
I know, I didn't see that.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it right now. Let me see if it's still,
well, I mean,
popping around. Laser guided lightning.
Yeah, Nick's my husband's in the other room yelling across saying, like energy. You talk about energy. I mean, literally lasers. You could technically, use a laser to fire up into a cloud that is highly charged and produce lightning. I could see that being physically possible.
This is interesting. So here I just went to YouTube and looked up laser guided lightning, and this is the story I saw yesterday. This is one I saw yesterday, but then the next one is here from 7 years ago. Right? So
yep.
Yeah. Okay. So interesting. So that's there. Okay. All right. So when I look at, so can you bring back up that picture of the nativity scene?
Yeah, hold on, screen share. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, there we are.
Okay. So let's see. I don't see it. There it is. Okay. All right. So first of all, Laura did mention that this one that you call Mr. Potato Head, right? Like she felt like that might be like a nod to some pedophilia or something, like with that kind of thing. Or to me, it looks like blowing something, like using a sound to blow something into existence, or to like frequency, tone, something like that. But anyway, okay, so when I look at this, I understand what I'm looking at, that I've seen the whole thing, and then the little segments, it's much more clear to me than it was when I initially saw Dawn's post, right? So first of all, when I see the apple on her head and then the guy holding the moon, my temptation is to look for all the rest of the planets hidden somewhere in this. Because remember when we were all little in elementary school science class, we make like a model solar system, and we would do it like a diorama, which is basically what a nativity scene is. And we put our planets kind of thing. And I also saw an interesting video the other day where I even emailed it to myself, where it was like somebody was showing how like the solar system and the planets are all like in a certain kind of line, and there's like a warp drive that connects them, right? So like that's for some reason what's coming to me when I'm looking at this partially, right? So the apple on top of her head might be Mercury because it's red. We have the moon over here. Like I see.
Well, I was just going to say, or is the
Go ahead.
Is the apple the moon in front of the sun, i.e. an eclipse?
Possible, because we see a black shadow right behind it, right? I see lots of things.
We see a shadow behind it.
Right, like, there's like a little black circle next to the red circle right there, right? And then I see a lot of things.
Okay, interesting also. On Mary's cloak, you can see stars.
You can see stars on her cloak.
She's got stars on the side of her head cover.
Right.
Ooh, I'm going to have my astrology girls look at this.
Okay, so this is my first thought, is how many planetary bodies are encoded in the planetary or luminary bodies are encoded in this scene? That's my first thought. All right. Second thought. And I'm going to do my best to do a good job here, because I know I'm telling you this for the first time. I'm knowing nobody else has. And I just want to be like very clear here. I'm not saying this is the truth, because I don't understand this work well enough yet to judge whether or not I think it's the truth. But sometimes you fall onto something that not only resonates in that space that like, when you hit on something that just like, it's not like an almost true or a maybe true resonance. It's like, what the fuck, dude? And then you're able to find evidences in your own life that quote correspond to it. Right. All right. So I fell onto a YouTube channel a few months ago called FPV Angel. And on there is a group of people that do research, and they call themselves the Angel Particle Matrix Research Team. And they say that the things that we think of as angels are actually particle accelerators, and that we live in a giant, basically free energy kind of device, a la Walter Russell's diagrams from his water experimentation, right?
Yep.
All the things that we think of as like in the Bible as some sort of like characters throughout religion. These are an ancient technology that is embedded in our earth or in our skies, and the skies are a reflection of what's going on underground, right? So there's machinery underground, and then they are reflected as luminaries and movement in the sky. And even though these things are reflections, somehow they have ways that they interact with each other, even in the reflective space. Like even the reflection has its own technology. And the way that these angels are described in like the Bibles and mythic texts and stuff like that are like the way people like it's an energy being described. And because humans have this desire to personify everything, because we're people, they've assumed that they're characters, right? And so basically what I'm seeing when I look at all of these characters here, these angels or these characters that are religious or spiritual or mythical characters, they look like particle accelerators. Look at them. I'm going to pull up now. So if you can stop share, right? Look, so like I'm going to.
Yeah. I can see what you're saying.
All right. So stop share, and I'm going to show you something really fast. Okay. So I'm going to go a little bit in reverse, but I'm going to, I looked up one day after I was, so I don't know which order to tell you this story in, so I'm just going to do my best and see what happens here. This is, if you look up how does a particle accelerator work, right? You find a lot of different kinds of diagrams, right? Like, but they all have all these like circular,
which I'm well familiar with,
circular rings, but there's one that
linear,
is kind of, right? Linear particle accelerator. Look at this, right? That, right? Look at this, right? There's like, look at this, right? Look at these, like there's just a ton. You can go through. I guess I could just look up linear particle accelerator and find some better diagrams, but I'm going to come back to this one in a second for a particular reason, right? Linear particle.
You got it right there, top search.
All right, linear particle accelerator. I'm a terrible typer and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's all these ring segments. Right? So, you know, like all of this spiral stuff, this looks like exactly that symbol that like a Roman gladiator looking character is holding. All right. Look at these. Like this literally looks like the same.
Very much so.
Exactly.
Very much so.
Okay. All right. So we can stop sharing. So I think we've made the point. I'm going to come back to some of this in a second. Right. But like literally, what is his name? I think it was like, I forget which guy who ran the FBI said, we'll know our disinformation campaign is complete when everything the American people believe is a lie.
It is a
right?
lie.
All right. So the entire idea, what if everything that we think of as space, and they have us constantly focused there, is actually under the ground, all of it. And the only thing that exists up there is a reflection of the machinery working underneath the ground. Okay. And so like basically, so well, years ago, before I knew what I was completely talking about, and I was just purely operating on intuition, now I know what I'm talking about 1 to 3%, and I 97% operate on just intuition and making shit up. I said in an interview with, I think it was with Andrew Bachaga or someone else, that right, that the secret space program or space is under the ground in Chatsworth, right, which is where I live and where I had all these weird experiences, which is where Rocketdyne is, which is where Boeing is. Chatsworth is hills, they're mountains. Like, why would you build a weapons manufacturing company on ground that wasn't flat? Like, why would you do it in the rockiest, hilliest, weirdest, most canyon area of a place, right? So, like,
unless you're drilling into the mountains,
right? I just said that. And then also when we had this, you know, weird interview with Andrew Bachaga, and some of this stuff I've said before, so excuse me for the people who are repeating myself, but I want to get your take on this, because like if you just reorient all the information you've been looking at for a period of time, suddenly things begin to make sense and your questions begin to become answered, right? So when I first started hearing, and remember when Andrew Bachaga popped up onto the scene like 2010, 2011?
No internet, no.
I hear you. Can you hear me? Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah. Just my internet's starting to go twitchy. So.
Okay. So do you remember when Andrew Bachaga like popped onto the scene in like 2010, 2011, 2012, like that period of time, right? In the years leading up to 2012 kind of stuff, right? And he had all these fantastic stories, right? that like are hard to believe, but there is something about his persona that feels less like you're being scammed than with a Corey Good or a whatever, right? Like there was something that was more, you could tell that he felt like he was telling the truth, right? And so when he was telling his stories about like going—
a little more fundamentally there.
Well, a little more fundamentally there, but also like, this is not a guy who got rich off of telling these stories, right? And he seemed very like, it was much more important to him that he be believed than that people fund his projects, right? Or that then people fund his, watch his show or whatever. He didn't do all the things a person would do if they were trying to capitalize on their nonsense, right? So there was just something about him that okay, like some of this stuff sounds hard to believe, but this is a guy who like it's different, right? So what was interesting is when I started hear him telling his stories about how he would get to Mars on an elevator, that kind of sounded familiar to me, because when I was little, I had this idea that I could take an elevator to the moon, right? Like that was like, I just thought that. I thought that the moon was like, I don't know in my head if it was like 80 miles or 80 stories, like an 80-floor elevator, but that I could take the elevator to the moon, right? And then one day around this time, I was driving on the freeway and I looked over to the left and the moon was so close. I'm like, dude, that shit cannot be very far away. Like 80 miles max, right? Like 80 miles max, it's not far. You probably could build an elevator to it. And apparently there was projects back in the 70s, like science fairs where kids did this, like try to build a space elevator kind of shit, right? So I was like, okay, so his story sounds incredible, but it reminds me of something from my childhood. And Andrew Bachaga grew up in the same neighborhood as me and went to the same school. Okay, right? So it's like, all right, now if we just—
Seriously?
Yeah. If we just flip everything around with the things I came to understand later, if Rocketdyne and Boeing are in the hills of Chatsworth and they have an underground base, well, what if you're just taking an elevator down into the earth and you think you're going up? Because as a child, when you get in an elevator, you don't usually use it to descend into the ground. You usually use it to go up. And when you're moving fast, sometimes you can't even tell which direction you're going, right? So, and then, you know, when you look at all these pictures of the particle accelerators, and again, I'm going to go back to how does a particle accelerator work, right? So that was how does a particle accelerator work? I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to show you some of this stuff real fast. So let's go here. How does a particle accelerator work? These all look like images, like something like this. When we're shown images of space travel, or when you see Elon Musk's thing supposedly flying through the air, like the lights look like that, right? This looks like you're going through a portal into a black hole in space. So like, what if Rocketdyne and Boeing and whatever have particle accelerators down there, right? And they're creating like these crazy energy fields, plasma fields, different kinds of things. And they're experimenting on putting children in those energy fields, because children's bodies are probably more coherent than adults, but also children will report to you exactly what they see here. They don't have a filter system like adults do.
They don't have a perception system in place.
Right. They're they're using it to kind of map out hyperspace, which in my head is like, I have always thought that the brain mapping program and the secret space program are actually the same thing. And they tell us they're exploring space, but really they're exploring the deep recesses of our mind, which are actually the same as what they've described as far outer space, right? Okay, so that was kind of always my thought, right? And these, okay, maybe that's what they do. They build particle accelerators, these companies, right? They're not really building spaceships and shit like that. Everything that they say is really this. They make a few cover bullshit ones and whatnot, right? So then I fall onto this, you know, FPV Angel stuff. John Levi mentioned them briefly about something kind of different, not even related to this in a video. I went and looked and I was like, holy fuck, this shit's the Motherlode. They have like 12-hour live streams that they do. They show how some of the technology works. They map why, like they're a flat earth channel, but it's not that the point is that the earth is flat. The earth being flat is a feature of the fact that it's a technological machine and it's like many layers deep. It's not like a fucking pizza disc kind of thing, right? So they have graphs They have all of these ancient like mandalas and sacred geometries superimposed on these maps that they've created. They show how like the wave, like they have all this stuff that I don't even I can't say if it's true or not because I don't completely understand it. But when I look at what they are showing there, first of all, I see things that have been apparent in my remote views for more than 15 years now are in their work, like the way the graphs that they've created to show this. They do Bible decodes, they do mythological decodes, and so far, pretty much everything that I've seen visually resonates, and the things that my brain works well enough to understand resonates. Like some things I can't say because I still don't understand. Right? I've had a conversation with them. I'm going to have them on the show, but this is a vast work. This is really, really big, right? So what they say is that these particle accelerators, they're not something that these companies created. They tell us that they build particle accelerators. I mean, they may build little ones for use in creating drugs and different kind of stuff like that and whatever, right? But these big ones, these companies set up shop where they have been in the ground there for thousands of years, and they're trying to—
Where they found them.
Where they found them, right? They're trying to either learn how to control them, understand how they work, piggyback other technologies on top of them. And some of the places where these are, and it's in Chatsworth, like, think about it. If this is correct, Los Angeles is called the Angels. That means the particle accelerators. This city would be full of them. And I can tell you exactly where they are based on where some of these companies are and where the weird— oh, we paused up here. You there? You there? You're back.
Yep. I'm just, my internet's going a little sketchy, but I'm following.
Okay, right. So I can tell you based on where some of these companies are located and based on anomalous things that go on in certain areas around Los Angeles, probably pretty close to where these particle accelerators are. My guess would be that there's more of them here than anywhere else. And that's why this city is called the Angels, right? Okay. And so like, they're trying to control it. All the places, like in Chatsworth, they said that there was a huge radiation leak in the 60s in Santa Susana. Oh, she's frozen again. All right, hold on a second. We'll wait. You there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, all right. So like a lot of these places around the United States, like 3 Mile Island and Chatsworth, have been places that mysteriously had big radiation spills and radiation leaks, so nobody could go back there. Right? And I think that's bullshit. That doesn't resonate as true for me. But if they're doing things back there that they don't want people to know about, or if they're experimenting with technologies that they don't know the ramifications of, or whatever, there's a million reasons. Or if they're these machines and the technologies that they're trying to either copy, piggyback, do whatever, create time anomalies, space anomalies, weird things. Why is it? A
la Mandela effects type shit?
A la Mandela effects, a la time dilation, a la time dispersion, a la a Marilyn Manson, a Charles Manson cult, a la like a canyon that seems to appear and disappear and that kind of stuff, a la a la Ayn Rand lived there when she wrote Atlas Shrugged, a la, right? Like lots of weird stuff, okay? So, they would say that like there's this thing going on back there, right? So then a couple years ago, Jeff and I went back to this area where I went to summer camp, and I had a lot of my weird experiences as a kid, right? That led me to say these things. Like, I think that like I was part of the same later iteration of a project that Andrew Bachaga was part of, but the difference is he thinks he went to space, and I know I was part of a mind control program. But everything else kind of lines up, right? Like it's a different perceptual take on the same thing. So Jeff and I go back to this area.
That's exactly it. No. That's my theory, is it's a just different perceptual take on the exact same thing.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Everything is like when and this goes for everything they tell us. When they talk about Venus, are they talking about the planet, or are they talking about Williams? When they talk about, right, like they don't say what they're talking about. They just say Venus and we assume we know. Right.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Right. So, or the song by, whatever it is. Right. So, okay. So, Jeff and I go back. I'm trying to shorten it because I know a lot of people on my channel have heard this, but this is probably new stuff for people on your channel, so I hope we'll see this as well.
Yeah.
Right? So Jeff and I, a couple of years ago, go back and we do an HK session, or his version. It's not really HK anymore, but he does, right? On this sort of hill over this area where I went to camp and where the Boeing facility is, right? And so we do this session, and during the session, I remote viewed a particle accelerator, and that was exactly 2 years before I found this other work. right? I remote viewed that, right? And we do this whole session and whatnot. And I have a lot of crazy, weird things that are going on in my mind while this is happening that I'm going to spare people. They can go look at the other places I've talked about it. And I'm going to be making a full video about this topic that's just about this. But 2 days after we're done, the Woolsey Santa Susana Pass fire broke out exactly, basically right there where we did the session. Right. And it went all the way to Malibu and Thousand Oaks and all that stuff. Right.
I have a theory based on that. I've got a whole bunch of shit to add into what you've just said, but you keep going.
All right. So that happens. Right. And like, it was weird. I had some very serious physical ramifications of things happening to me over the next couple of weeks, you know, after that. And it took me a while to kind of come back to myself. So, okay, so we did that. And then Jeff was here a few weeks ago and we thought, let's go back and just see what else we found. Like, we didn't know if we were really going there to check our work,
take a look,
session or whatever, but we're back there and we're looking at Boeing and we're still unsatisfied with sort of the completeness of the answers of what we see. So then we decide to go for a hike and we go over the side of the hill where we've been. And suddenly we can see the other facility further back, which is Rocketdyne, right? And so we start researching the Rocketdyne thing. And I'm going to show you here. I'm going to screen share a little bit here. Again, let me pull up the correct window because I know I have it here. So we start looking at Rocketdyne and we start doing a little research while we're sitting. We have one bar on our phone, right? And we're sitting there doing research and talking about it and just energetically feeling into like whatever it is we're seeing and feeling and whatnot. And I find several articles talking about the radiation stuff, the problems with Rocketdyne, the problems with you know, you can even find things that like Kim Kardashian is leading a movement to clean up this area of Chatsworth, all kinds of crazy shit. But then I find that like the area, this is a Chumash Indian area called Burrow Flats, and that Rocketdyne has been there doing stuff, right? And they've gotten, they had to close down their operations at times, but it's all basically still there. You cannot go back there. Like you and I couldn't go back there, right? So this is Santa Susana Field Lab, which is located in Simi Hills, which is basically like the hills between Chatsworth, right over here. Simi Valley is over here. And then over here you have like Bell Canyon and stuff where like Joe Rogan lived when he lived here. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, and Woolsey Canyon is where the fire was, right? So this is a Chumash Indian area. And they like had some of the best cave paintings you've ever seen that humans are not allowed to go back and see. Right? They found there's a cave painting back there. What does that look like to you?
Uh-huh.
Right? Looks like the fucking particle accelerator.
Okay, I'm gonna pause right here. Have you seen the new the new wall of paintings that were just uncovered in South America?
No.
That are 13 kilometers long of paintings?
No. Where in South America? No, I haven't seen them. Where in South America?
Hold on. It's in, I think it's Colombia. Hold on. I got to get out of the exit full screen and go to my internet. Give me a second. I will pull it up. Your mind is going to be just blown.
All right.
South America, huge rock painting wall. Let's see. Can I pull it up?
So you can share. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, fuck. I'm on transparent. Okay, let's go back to any color. I was doing graphics work. Okay, here it is. Okay, this is in, you got it. Okay. Good thing you're sitting down, because if you do what you just showed me, just wait till you see this shit. Okay, hold on. These were just uncovered this year. It's, I think, 13 miles or 13 kilometers long.
Yeah.
Non-stop paintings like this for 13 kilometers. Nick and I spent over an hour just pulling up image after image after image of all of these paintings.
So look, already I can see animals that look like some of the animals that were in the Nativity Scene, right?
Okay,
right?
Hold on. Let me see if I do it pull it up this way, it'll pull up more of them, because this stuff is crazy. Like the stuff that you see in here, like the images, the patterns, the repeating patterns. So for example, the zigzag repeating patterns all over the place. So is that not like the lightning?
It's like the lightning, but even some of these things, they also look like the particle accelerators, right? Recurring, repetitive things with motion kind of to them, right? Keep going.
Yep. Hold on. Let's see. That's another one of the same one. Hold on. I'm trying to find you some. Okay, here's one of the ones that's like seriously cool. Like you have different men. Now there's a better picture of this. Let me see if I can find a better image of it. Because you got this one, okay, where you've got like the men, but you see how they're walking and they have like their arms behind them?
Yeah.
They've got almost like bird feet.
Bird feet.
Then you've got another figure of men that have got the big triangular upper bodies with the huge shoulders and the arms coming down.
Well,
but then you have these men up here. Oh, I got to move my window. Above here, you've got other beings, creatures that are tall and skinny that have a phallus sticking out.
Yeah.
We assume it's a phallus. And what are they shooting lightning out? Are they shooting out like they're obviously something is coming out of their hands, is going up into the sky. Now then there's this one here is another one. Hold on, I gotta wait for it to clear up.
I just want to point
again,
out.
So you've got look at these right now over here. If you look in the upper left corner of it, these like Y's, etc. Like they look like alleles,
chromosomes,
genetic alleles.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they look like, genetic chromosomes, the alleles, right? And same thing, look, you've got this line of beings again over here. But again, you've got these creatures who are tall with a
and look at these things. They look like
whatever. And these things coming up out of them, like these lines coming up out of them.
Okay, hold on a second. I also want to.
And the animals are crazy.
The animals are crazy. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. If you look at all these pictures, if you look at all these pictures off over to the left too, they're all stratified. If you look at the one that says rock art paintings, there's like a line. There's like one level and another layer and another layer, right?
Yes, and that's what Nick said. That's exactly what Nick said. Look at it. It's levels. It's divided into these levels, and you can there's one image that is you can really clearly there we go, this one.
Yep.
You can actually clearly see like there are levels to this.
Okay, so stop share for a second. Okay, so one thing that these people say, the FPV angel people, is that there's like 5 or 6 layers for each time we've relived kind of a cycle under the ground, right? So I'm not clear whether there's still things living down there or the evidence of a cycle is buried down within the ground kind of thing, right? Okay. All right, so now I'm going to take you back to but yes, we're seeing the same kind of stuff. I'm going to take you back to my thing over here, right? So we have this which to me there's things that look similar to the drawings that you have. This to me is very obviously some kind of particle accelerator. These look like mechanistic kinds of drawings, right? Okay, so these are a few, like some of them are as young as a few hundred years old, some are the thousands of years old. So different generations are drawing what they see and stuff like that. But even look at some of this. This looks like that spiral disc that's on your nativity scene. This also looks like a lot of the symbology you see used for mind control and hypnotism, vortex things, right? Like, okay, all that kind of stuff, right? So, so listen to this. So the history of this, Dr. Edwin Krupp is an astronomer and has been the director of the Los Angeles Griffith Observatory since 1974, which is where we go in Los Angeles to look at space, right? Griffith Observatory. He is recognized internationally as an expert on ancient prehistoric and traditional astronomy and has visited nearly 1,800 ancient and prehistoric sites throughout the world. In his 1983 book, Echoes of the Ancient Skies, The Astronomy of Lost Civilizations, he wrote, an astronomical element in the paintings at Burrow Flats was first noticed in 1979 by John Romani, a graduate student in archaeology at Cal State Northridge, where I did go for a short period of time. He thought a natural cut, a kind of bottomless window in the overhang above the western end of the panel paintings looked like it might let sunlight pass through and strike a part of the otherwise shaded panel at about the time of the winter solstice. Okay? Okay. Also from the 1983 book, Echoes of the Ancient Skies, The Astronomy of Lost Civilizations, Dr. Krupp wrote, the paintings which record the involvement of the Chumash with the sky are on the same plateau where the stands on which the huge moon rocket and space shuttle engines were test fired. Right there in Chatsworth. That was a picture right there at the top. It's that, right? That's the monument to where that happened, right? Okay, so back down here. All right. In a 2014 letter to NASA, Dr. Krupp noted that the NASA test stands and the Burrow Flats painted shelter comprise the only place on Earth where our modern world heritage in space converges with the prehistoric reach for the sky. And for that reason, this place is irreplaceably significant in the history of space exploration, the history of NASA, the history of California and America, and the history of the world. The secret space program is under the ground in Chatsworth.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, I don't know. But this is, listen.
It's weird, right?
We started out, you and I both said it. Everything that they've told us is a lie.
Everything
is a lie. What is outer space? Nick and I have had discussions been going on for 20 years of like what is actually outer space. And I won't even remotely say that I comprehend it yet, except to know that whatever it is that they tell us is fucking bullshit. Right? Now, I want to go back because one of the things you talked about was the elevator. And earlier you talked about that thing that when something resonates.
Yeah.
When you hear something and when it hits you and it then stays, that piece, whatever you've just read or heard, it stays right here and it comes back to you all the time. And when you're considering other pieces, other facts, etc., you have certain pieces that stay in the surface of your mind, if you will. So there was someone I spoke to back in 2014. And she was describing the concept of different dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one thing I talk about on my show all the time is our language is fucked, and our language has deliberately been fucked with, so that we cannot have these conversations because people end up with preconceived notions of what a word means because we don't have another word to describe it. So we have to use ineffective words, right? So she used the word dimensions, but let's take that word out and call it levels. And she told a story, and this is that is something that struck me in the moment that she said it, and it stayed with me ever since then. That at one point in time, Earth was upright.
Mm-hmm.
And when Earth was upright, the elevator shaft, if you want to call it that, connected all the levels. Now, she defined it as all the way up, but it could be equally just all the way down, right?
Yep.
And then there was a cataclysm that happened, and Earth went to the 23 degrees. And at that point, that elevator shaft became disconnected. So you have a shaft here, and then all of a sudden, Earth shifted here. Now the shafts don't connect anymore. So they can no longer travel between the levels, trapping those who were here, ended up getting trapped here. Those who were outside couldn't get back.
Mm-hmm.
So this is 2014, and I was like, there's a piece there that hit me, and I was like, okay, there's a fundamental piece. Whether we argue over what it goes up, it goes down, dimensions, levels,
it can even go horizontal. We don't.
It does, and does it really matter?
Doesn't matter.
In the end of it, it doesn't really matter, right? That piece, there's been more and more pieces that have come out. So you talk about the elevator. One of my most favorite authors,
oh my God,
is Robert Heinlein.
Okay.
And Robert Heinlein in the 60s wrote about a space elevator, that they would ride the elevator from Kenya up to the moon.
Yeah.
And up, there was various elevators that went straight up to, they called it the Beanstalk, the Kenya Beanstalk.
I wonder if that's what Jack and the Beanstalk, I wonder if that's what Jack and the Beanstalk is modeled after, those ancient stories. Yeah. Okay.
Well, okay. So again, elevators that go up, the idea of ladders. Now, you talked about remote viewing. I have seen the moon multiple times in remote viewing. I don't see it as an elevator, but I see a ladder. I see a stairwell, and I have climbed the stairs.
Same thing.
Climbed the stairs up to the moon and gone inside the moon.
Mm-hmm.
right? So again, I have met so many people who have seen that exact same piece, who've had those experiences where they've climbed the ladder up to the moon and they've walked in. Now, one of the clearest ones I have, I was actually following someone up.
Have you seen the TV show Legion? That actually happens in the show Legion.
We only saw the first season, so it's a one that I need to catch up on.
Okay, hold on one second. Hold on 1 second. Let me just read this last thing here so I can stop screen sharing here. It says, just like this guy, spoke at the Santa Susana flatland, right, that area. And the title of his talk was Uplifted and Transported, Uplifted and Transported, Encounters with Borough Flats. Not encounters with space, right? Not, right? Look at the title of his talk. Right? Okay. Yeah. Now I'm going to stop sharing. I just wanted to do that so I could stop sharing and go back. While you were talking, I just pieced something together that is going to fucking blow your mind. So finish what you're saying, and I can't wait to tell you what I.
Okay. So one of the clearest ones that I have, and this was back, 2014, 2015, somewhere around there, was, and I wasn't sleeping. I was in a meditative state. I was meditating, and I went up the stairs. I was following a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I was following a woman, and she was dressed very ornately, almost like a very ornate traditional.
In your remote view. In your remote view.
In my remote view, she was dressed in like almost like a kimono, like very, very like the really extravagant ceremonial type. She wasn't Japanese, but that's how my brain interpreted her outfit. And I followed her up the stairs, and we got to the moon. And a door opened and she went inside and I stepped inside, and it was a big gray room, if you will. And there was some kind of a control panel. Mm-hmm. And she went to the control panel and she did a couple of things. And then a door behind the control panel opened. And I stepped forward, and then everything was like, no, you don't want to go there. No, get out. No, you need to leave right fucking now. And I turned around and stepped out of the moon and looked down, and I could see Earth below me. And I could see like a energy grid over top of the whole planet.
Yeah.
Like a cage, if you will, over top of the whole planet. And I started walking down. I'd only gone down maybe 2 or 3 stairs, and all of a sudden it got brighter, and then it just, like the energy grid thing around it just exploded out. And then I was like, boom, back in my body again. And just, that was it. Wow. But again, it's one of those viewings that is so, to this day, I could describe how she was dressed. I can describe the control panel. Everything about it is so crystal clear. And I've had variations on that theme multiple times since then. And that's my number one thing. Well, you asked earlier, what do you think the moon is? I'm like, the moon is a fucking control structure. I have no idea what David Icke has to say about it. I've never read his stuff. That's just my own remote viewing. It was like, no, it's not a good thing. And it was, so when I have a lot of friends who are pagans and Wiccans, etc., and they're all like venerating the moon. I'm like, you don't want to do that. The moon is not what you think it is. It's not something to be looked upon and praised, etc., or energy spent on it at all.
So, okay, couple of things. So, yeah, I think your views, and it lines up with this, whatever the fuck this is that we think of as our Earth and the planetary system, it's some kind of technology, right? And like, people get upset when you say that because they're thinking of like the modern iteration of stupid technology, right? Kind of stuff. But like, we are in some kind of system that seems to work on cycles, right? That we don't completely understand, but it seems to have a machine like elements to it. And so like this, I think, so what these people say is that it's about every 400 years or so, the machine goes through a major adjustment.
Reset?
Huh?
Goes through a reset?
Reset, right? Like an adjustment that causes quote unquote cataclysms or whatever, right? There's small adjustments going on all the time. And we know those as earthquakes and weather disturbances and things like that. Funny enough, one of the biggest earthquakes in recent history was in Northridge, which is just a few miles from Chatsworth, right? And so like the earthquake would be the result of the machine adjusting itself. right? And so like, you know, like they have all this stuff where they've done like monitor earthquakes and whatever, and show and how you can kind of, with the, like what Doctrine does where he predicts it, like they use some of his stuff. He's a round earther, they're flat earthers, so they perceive it different, but they got onto some of this topic based on watching his work.
But you can still, don't get stuck in a narrative and just use what you got.
Yeah, right, okay. So like basically the elite and blah, 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 all that stuff, they don't own these particle accelerators and machines, and they don't control them, but they would like us to think that they do. And they have figured out that it seems like every certain amount of time, the machine resets itself. And what they have figured out, and that they don't share with the rest of us, is how to manage these transitions, how to be in the right place so that they survive it. And then once the reset started and a lot of the people are dead or gone or totally impoverished, they're in a more powerful position because they maintained themselves and their belongings and their whatever, right? During the course of the reset. Now there's, you know, part of it is like the structures that survive are the ones that seem to be like built so that they're in resonance with the local particle accelerator, and nature is the things that are in harmony with that local vibration of the particle accelerator, kind of thing. And so that's the whole thing. So like even part of the reason that they're calling their stupid economic takeover, blah, 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 the Great Reset, right, is because those of us who quote unquote survive this on the other side of it, like will be living in a state where, like, you know, things will have been reset, and they want us to think that it's something that they did and that they control. They have no idea how this shit, like they've been trying to figure this shit out for fucking ever. And all they've been able to figure out so far is like that it seems to happen on a fairly, it's not totally, but semi, and it's a long process. It's not something that happens one day. We're already in the process of the adjustment, right? So, but here's what came to me while you were talking, right? Because this is like, you know, I know that you, I'm sure, like are really aware of like fractals and microcosm, macrocosm, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What else does that linear particle accelerator and those cave drawings look like?
It looks like a circuit board. Like that was one of the things that came to me. It was like, it looks almost like an image of a circuit board.
Something else.
The way you would look at the different, I don't know.
It looks like the human spine.
Yeah.
What if, like, so like, you know, especially when you got someone with like a lot of piss and vinegar like myself or yourself that can just go on and on, like what if we're little particle accelerators, right? And think about this. You and I,
energy that we put out.
So our
magnetic fields.
We're little versions of this like godly machine kind of thing. We have got our own particle accelerator in our body. People do things to like awaken their kundalini and turn it on. But what else did you say? You talked about the thing being broken. Well, how many times have you and I said, isn't it weird how everyone we know who's awake has had a spinal cord injury? And then that seems to be part of the thing that starts to wake them up. So if the earth went through a spinal cord injury of some sort based on one of these adjustments, then when we have that experience, we suddenly start to come into the awareness of what has happened on the bigger fractal of the bigger whole of all the
on the macro and the micro. Well, and it's really, really interesting because right now there's several topics we've been talking about with the unfuckers nonstop. One is physical symptoms. A lot of people are going through, physical pain, backs, hips, shoulders. People were having horrific pain, all kinds of difficulties. And the other one is the feeling of energy moving through your body. And I get it all the time. Where I lay down, I notice it at most, obviously, because I run continuously all day. So when you're busy, you don't take note of these things. It's when you stop that you have a chance to. And I lay down at night and I can feel the energy running up and down my spine to the point of, it's like this. And I've got a small group of friends who I chat with all the time. And I'll get up in the morning and be like, oh, well, I was vibrating out of my body just about again last night. How about you guys? And they're like, yeah. What the fuck? And what is that? Like when your body, and you can feel the vibrations in your spine of I call it energy, as a lack of a better word, right? You can feel the energy.
But sometimes there's almost like an electricity, or like it feels like a machine or a vibration. Like sometimes I'll touch somebody and they'll be like, you are buzzing like a fucking machine, not like a shaking like I'm nervous, but like there's something literally activated in my body.
Okay, so the tones that we're hearing, right? A lot of people are talking about the tones. Last week, I laid down in bed, and all of a sudden, same thing is one of the things when you put everything away and you actually go to a quiet space, and then you realize, I'm like, holy fuck! I said to Nick, holy shit, it is so loud tonight, like deafening. And I realized in my left ear, I was hearing a mechanical pulsing. And it was two tones. It was not do, do, do. It was erratic. It was up. It was down. And you do that where you plug over your ear to try, like, am I hearing it from outside? And you plug your ear and it's even louder once you plug your ear and you're like, what is that shit?
So what if you are in harmony with this machine that is the earth, right? And all these people who've been experiencing all of these symptoms that they think means something is wrong are actually in tune and are more likely to sort of last whatever this adjustment or this shift or whatever is. And the people who are just totally like, no, everything's fine, I don't feel anything, right? They're just complete, they haven't lived through this before. We are recognizing something that we have experienced before. And it's like all of these things and symptoms that happen and whatever are like, you know, the activation of that sort of ancient memory kind of thing, right? So,
well, it's really we sat and we watched a bunch of movies. Oh, I guess about a year ago, and we put on, I don't know why, we put on the movie The Day After Tomorrow, which is of course the epic ice age that happens in the flood and the tidal wave and the whole thing. And my eldest daughter, who can sit and watch horror movies, she can watch the scariest shit. She cried, and she was like, I have no idea why I'm crying. I have no idea why I'm crying. I was talking to one of my girlfriends, and we both said, like, that's the way she acted, the way she reacted was someone reacting to a memory.
Yeah.
There was something in that triggered a much deeper memory, whether you want to call it, like an ancestral memory. However, like I said, I'm not going to get into the whole
we
past lives type stuff, because I don't even think past lives exist. I'm becoming to believe that past lives are all existing right now. Like, and it's there's me here, but there's me over there, and there's me over there, and there's me over there, and over there, and it's all happening right now.
Yep, I agree. Okay, let's wrap up this segment real fast. We're going to take a break and we're going to go over into the second, the patrons section. I'm thinking maybe what we could do is talk about, like, with this idea in mind, let's just pretend that what we've talked about here is the truth, right? Like, what purpose would the distractions of 2020 being this ridiculous election and the coronavirus serve in that reality? So we're going to be doing that over in the patron section. All right, Dani, before we go, why don't you
I got lots to talk about on that topic.
Before we go, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Okay, so my main site that I post all my shows on, articles, etc., is RTS Earth. The original one was Removing the Shackles, so it's now shortened down to rts.earth. That's where I post everything out. I have a membership site called unfuckersunite.com. That's where the unfuckers hang out. And we have our more private chats, etc., etc. But yeah, that's it. That's basically RTS Earth and Unfuckers Unite.
All right, awesome. And you guys can join us at patreon.com/offplanetmedia for part 2. We'll see you over there in just a minute.